media covers, how the rest of the country sees what's happening. If it can be spun that we're using force, that we are escalating something, that we're causing something, that we're provoking the police, then that's how the media is going to spin it. That the media will spin it that way if they can. Their interest is serving their corporate goals, their corporate interests. So they're not going to tell things from our perspective unless it's really easy to do so, unless there's reasons for them to do it. So any chance they get to spin it the way the police say it should be spun, or city council, or the way the merchants and cities should say it should be spun, that's what they'll do. Another issue, as they found out on Sunday, is criminal charges. If the police accuse people of force, there's criminal charges, which takes your time and energy away. You're distracted. You're not here, making a presence, making a statement about the 99%. You're not here making your statement if you're dealing with the courts, if you're dealing with going to jail, going to court, going to hearings, finding lawyers, all that kind of thing. So that's another downside to the police being able to spin that you're using force. I just said distraction, the distraction. There's a purpose for being here. Each person has slightly different reasons for being here, but you're here with a purpose, and that's where you want to focus your energy. That's what you want your actions to have an outcome of. You want it to move your goals forward. Sometimes, as you know, sometimes people intentionally confront the police and get arrested as part of their goals. They believe that will accomplish their goals. That sometimes happens, and that's something you have to decide in this particular situation, if sometimes that's necessary or sometimes that's a good point. But in general, your goal is different than confronting the police. You're not about confronting the police. You're about accomplishing the idea of pushing the agenda of 99% and why you're here. Lupe?
I've been involved in civil disobedience, nonviolence, and it's very, very planned. That wasn't planned what I saw on the video. Because I don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt. So it's very, very planned if you're going to do that.
So in terms of the reasons for doing the nonviolence is so that you can remain focused on your goal. You do trainings, have discussions, you make a lot of decisions. I mean, I'm going to keep talking about that, making decisions, making solidarity, decide what your goals are, how you're going to work together, what you all agree to do. That's, I think, one of the most important things with nonviolence. Discussions, talking, deciding what you want to do, deciding what your solidarity is. What's the plan, what you're going to do, and how you're going to respond when the police come. I get the impression that most likely the police will come here and do something. I mean, I think it sounds like it's inevitable from what I've been hearing from people. So the big job you all have and everybody here has is to talk about solidarity, talk about what do you do the day the police come and the next day and the next day. And so that's a discussion you need to have, and decisions that need to be made, and that's the most important part of nonviolence, or that's the most important part of nonviolence, is making the decisions about what your response is going to be when it happens, and what your next steps will be, what your fallback position is, what you're going to do the next day, how you're going to continue the movement and continue your goals after the police come. So that's remaining focused. If we can portray, if the media is convinced that the group is really working hard on nonviolence, and if you can convince them of that, then should be harder for them to discredit you. It should be harder for them to say, hey, what was I watching? I was watching some mainstream station, some network station, news on Monday, I think, and they were, and the reporter was just being an asshole, just saying, why did you guys not obey the police? He was just pushing an agenda and just had that talking point down. So that hopefully, if we can convince enough people to really participate in nonviolence training and really internalizing the ideas of nonviolence and making the decisions necessary, hopefully it'll be a little bit harder for the media to spin it. I mean, that happened during the civil rights movement a long time ago. The media was originally on the side of the police, saying, hey, the police are doing the right thing. The police are protecting the community. The police are doing what they have to do. And eventually, when it was so obvious that the protesters, the activists, were using nonviolence, adhering to nonviolence, taking their lumps, willing to go to the jail, finally the news media had to reveal the truth to a certain extent. It's like, hey, the activists aren't doing this, the police are doing this. It's them breaking the law, not the activists. Obviously one thing you want to do is reduce the criminal charges. You don't want to be hit with assault on a police officer or battery on a police officer. It's a total distraction of what the goal is. It takes more time to deal with. It's more serious charges. You want to avoid assault and battery charges against police officers, which we heard someone who had talked to some police officers and found out that that's kind of their standard procedure. If they are in an uncomfortable position, they'll just charge you with assault. And it's hard to disprove it. It's hard to say, oh, I didn't raise my hand near the police officer. That's assault. If you raise your hand near a police officer, they can charge you with assault. So how do you disprove that? How do you disprove you didn't move any of your limbs near a police officer? It's an easy charge for them when they're stepping over the line, when they're messing up, when they're screwing up, they start slapping assault and battery charges on people. Battery is very misleading too, because battery is if you touch a police officer with your pinky, with your foot, with your arm. If he rubs by you, he can charge you with battery, which seems totally crazy, but that is the law as it stands, and they can charge you with battery if they pushed past you and you rubbed against them. They can charge you with battery under the law. And again, it's hard to say, I had no intent. The policeman did it. I had no intent to do it. It's very hard to disprove. You need a really good lawyer. So one of the things we want to do is reduce criminal charges. Another reason people really like nonviolence is because it doesn't have to be secretive. If for people who are planning actions, there are some people who believe in change and want to do violence against buildings or things that are really active, taking active steps and damaging things. Those people find that they need to be really secret. They can't let anybody in on their secret. The great thing about nonviolence, if we're all committed to nonviolence, we're all saying we're not going to hurt anybody, we're not going to hurt anything, then you can be open about it. You can all talk. It doesn't matter if there's police, secret police people here in the circle. You can just have the conversation, and you can tell the police, this is what we're doing, this is what we're planning. So that's a great thing about nonviolence. It kind of defeats that whole hierarchy thing, and somebody has to be in charge, and somebody has to be secret, and all that kind of stuff. So it's another great point about nonviolence, that your plans can be open, shared, and discussed with everybody.
It basically provides an air of transparency for the
transparency. And that's also great for our movement, because we don't want leaders. We want everybody to participate, everybody to be a leader. That's a side benefit of that is when the police and the city council wants to target people, there is no leader for them to target. So there's pluses to both sides of that. Decisions. I'm just going to keep talking about decisions, and say it's the most important thing. Everybody involved in the encampment needs to talk. They need to talk about what are we going to do when the police do X? What are we going to do when the city council makes some decision saying this square has to be cleared because the Festival Lights is coming, and so there's going to be 100,000 tourists, so we got to. What are you guys going to do that's nonviolent, and that's your decision? It's a hard decision. It's something that's going to be difficult, but you need to talk about it because how you respond to the police will depend on what you've decided. You may be deciding to lock arms, you may be deciding to go limp, you may be deciding to whatever you're going to decide. You need to make the decision. The people who are actually here, who will be here when the police march through, need to make the decision ahead of time so you can plan your nonviolence response. You can practice your nonviolent response. So some of it's automatic. If the police come in suddenly, if the police suddenly charge down the street now, you don't have time to think about, well, I think I'll do this or I think I'll do that. You kind of need to be prepared if they come in suddenly, which they probably will. So making the decision about what it is people plan to do. And you're not going to have 100% agreement, as you know. There are different people for different reasons here. So the people who are in agreement need to decide what that means. It may mean that some people are going to stand to one side. It may mean that people are going to separate from people who they suspect are going to not behave nonviolently or not behave in the planned fashion. So that's another part of the decisions people who are here have to make. People have to decide, okay, 90% of us think this. 90% of us are in solidarity on this issue. There's some people who aren't. What does that mean? What does it mean for when the police charge, what's going to be done? So decisions, talking, discussion. I'm just going to keep pushing it. Solidarity. You're going to, if you talk about it enough, you'll decide on some solidarity points. You'll decide on, this is what we're going to do. This is our plan. A certain number of people will be in one category. Other people will try to get out of the way and be able to collect people's stuff and go to the jail and look for them when it's all over. So that's one of the decisions you're going to make. Who's in which category and where you're going to stand if you're in particular categories. Bail and other legal things. You need to talk about who's taking care of the legal stuff. Who are the lawyers? What are the plans? Are people going to make bail? Are people going to try to get out other ways? So that's another thing to discuss ahead of time, because when it happens, you don't want to then decide, when somebody's in jail, you don't want to then have to think about, well, hey, what numbers do we have for lawyers and that sort of thing. So again, talking and decisions. Another issue that's happened on Sunday and will happen again is people will come here at the last minute. They'll hear that the police are raiding, and people will come here that some people you haven't seen before, some people you may have seen, but they weren't in on any of the discussions. So you need to think ahead of time how to incorporate those people or try to involve them in ways that are positive. That's another important decision that people who are here and here a long time need to think about is, what about the last minute supporters? What about the people who are going to come in at the last minute and haven't gone through any trainings, haven't really heard? And maybe it's a good thing to try to talk to people who visit from time to time, who might be some of these people who might come at the last minute. And I already mentioned the decisions you're going to have to make about people who aren't in solidarity. There are people here, there will be people here when the police come who haven't agreed to the solidarity agreements, who aren't participating in the discussions or are have their own ideas of what they're going to do or don't have any ideas of what they're going to do. So that's something that people who are in solidarity,
On that issue, the separation of individuals not in agreement, how do we deal with that?
There's different ways people have tried to do it in the past. Events that are planned usually organize monitors, but these are events that you know when it's happening, you know when you're going to be confronting the police, and so you can set aside these 4 people are monitors and kind of stand between the non-agreeing people. Like there's events where there's kids who call themselves anarchists, people who are dressed in black and cover their faces and are participate in rallies and marches, but are not in agreement with any of the solidarity ideas. So when it's organized, you can have people kind of stand between it. So those people are over there. The police and the media are clear that those are those people. That's a way to do it if you're able to know ahead of time when it's happening. It's harder when you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's something to think about. It's like, well, how should we respond with people we know aren't really in agreement with the solidarity ideas? How do we respond at the time when the police come in? And so that the police and the media don't say it's everybody. Everybody's acting the same. Everybody's acting irresponsibly and responding the wrong way.